Hey everybody, today I'm going to show you how to do the rear shock this time. I don't know if you can tell from this view, but the right rear is making a very loud whistle, especially when turning the vehicle off and it's kind of adjusting itself. It'll really scream on the right side. So you can kind of see that it's leaning slightly to the right. It's not really bad enough to slam the suspension yet. Start doing it here. So that squeak will sometimes go on, there you go, for much longer. So I tell you, that's pretty annoying. So I'm guessing there's just a slight tear in it. And I hear the compressor go on all the time. So just the fact that the compressor goes on all the time is reason enough for me to replace it, because I don't want to blow my compressor out. And then here I've turned the car off, and then it'll whistle again, just like that. So you can tell that the material is not working or sealing anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace it with this Arnot right here. This is every tool that I use for this job. Pry bar is always good to have, move stuff around. Use some kind of metal hammer to tap the punch. This is just a bit, but you want like a punch to push the to get the brake pads out. Rubber mallet helps break these wrenches loose when you're working on the suspension. I got the channel locks to push the brake pistons back in the caliper. I got this 10 adjustable wrench to counter hold the 21. Ideally, you want 2 of these 21 wrenches to get that off, or you know, a 21 socket. And then I got the 18, which is for the caliper bolts. And then I've got the 13 here, which is good to get the C-pillar 13 that holds the top of the strut, so the socket doesn't fit on there very well. You got the 10 here that takes off the nut for the air line on top of the strut. You got your 17 deep socket, take the wheel on and off. You got your E10 that's going to take off the brake wear sensor. This is a 13 millimeter socket with a small extension to get the 13 bolts on the top off. You got your E18, that's the counter hold the other 21 bolt on suspension on the lower control arm. And then of course another 18 socket helps you get those brake caliper bolts off. This is just to speed the job up. Then I got that here. Then you're gonna want something like this, a mechanic's wire or a bungee cord to hold the caliper so that you don't put a bunch of stress on the brake line. So first thing you want to do is looking under the back of the vehicle. The jack under here. Of course, supposed to handle the right, and you want to make sure the front wheels are blocked so that the car doesn't roll forward. I'm just going to lift this guy from the differential so I can get the vehicle all the way. You hear that? That's the strut hissing. So as I lift the vehicle, I'll probably hear it release all of its air. Yep, there it goes. That's a good indication of a bad strut right there. So this is a little bit of a proactive repair. And then I'll put my jacks onto a lift point. This is the right rear wheel. This little bump here is the lift point for a lot of different Mercedes. So we're gonna put that there, make sure it's lined up. I'll set this guy down. So once we're set on our points, we can take the wheel off and we can get going on the rest of the repair. It can also be a useful tip to push on the brake pedal with something like a pry bar and just move the seat forward a little bit to keep pressure on there so the vehicle doesn't roll at all while you got the rear wheels lifted. Now we can see here is we're going to need to take this caliper off so that we can get the strut off, which is going to be held in by this bolt on the bottom, and then of course the electrical connector for that valve. And then we're going to want to go inside the car, remove that little cover, and there will be 313s under there. What's usually recommended is to remove the 13s first. Me personally, I think it doesn't really matter, but so we're going to remove the caliper. So what you're going to want to do is you want to hit this button right here so that you can put your headrest down so you can get to the back. We're going to pop this cover right here with our very clean hands. Right, don't do that, it smooths away. It's very old stuff, so I'll show you the bottom of that. It's all just a bunch of clips that come straight up. Okay. And we can see down in here that we need to move this foam slightly out of the way so that we can reveal this nut that will just twist off and get our hose line off. My air is probably already all gone because it's leaking. And yours might be too, but there's a 13 right here, 13 right here, another one right there. So 1, 2, 3, take all those out. Take the hose lines off with a open end or flare nut wrench, whatever you got. So after doing this, what I could say works best, you probably just want to use an open end 13 on this one right here. That way you're not using a ratchet. It's going to be bunching up against your C-pillar trim, so you just kind of get in there and just do that. Once it's loose enough, you just spin it the rest of the way off. The other two, this one, small extension, you're probably going to want a deep socket, and then you're going to want to get this one right here. I already got that one off, and then you just small extension, careful not to hit the back window. You don't want to break that. You want it very slow and controlled. Do the same thing for the back, otherwise you're going to be scraping up against your partial shelf and you don't want to mess that up. Also, you're going to want 10 millimeter going here. And just do the same thing with that guy. Just get in there and slowly turn it off. And then you got that little guy right there, just gonna thread out and then pull off. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna pull this guy back. Put the wrench down. You're gonna pull this piece back on the smaller bit right here. That little opening that you see right there, you're gonna want to basically just destroy that, pull that off, twist it off, whatever you gotta do. But usually you can pull pull the top back down a little bit like that, and you want to spread this to take it off carefully so it doesn't really mess up the plastic. But, so, I'll show you that. Basically, what you want to do, you want to have this guy, and you can see that opening. You want to come in here with like a screwdriver or something and just turn that so that it spreads itself open. So that releases its pressure. You can notice there's a crack or a crease happening on the back side. Make sure it's focused here. It's okay. This part is disposable. The new strut is going to come with one. We're just going to take this guy off. And in most cases, it's going to break in half. Okay, it's still together. You're also going to take this off. This is garbage. New. It's going to come with a brand new one. And I'll show you why when we put it back in. Alright, so what we're going to do next, this is the back side of the right rear caliper. We're going to take this little guy off here. This is a brake wear sensor. We're just going to pull that straight out. We're just going to leave that to the side. We're going to take this. This looks like an E10 that we are just going to take off. Take that bolt off. Let's see if that's on there the right way. Okay, takes very little effort. We're going to screw that out. And then we're going to put that wire to the side, because once we get the parking brake caliper off, it is not going to want to come with us. It's just going to want to come back here, and you're going to take it out of the little clips that hold it, if you can. Yeah, you just kind of want to leave it out of the way because it's going to stretch when you take the caliper off. So we're also going to take these two bolts off right here. So this bolt here, there's two big ones right here. We're going to take those off. So that is going to be an 18, and I'm using the closed end, taking that off, and I'm just hitting it with a soft mallet so that I don't completely destroy my arm or fist or something trying to rip it off. And so once you get those off, we'll hang the caliper from our bungee cord. So what we want to do here, as you can see, let me get some sunlight on there. We want to hit this pin so that it goes out, and this little bracket will release so we can get the brake pads out, and we'll be able to expand the brake pads a little bit. So you want to get like a punch or something like that right here. Just drive that sucker all the way out. You can see this little bracket will come out like that. Set that to the side. We take our little pin out. Always goes in from the back. We'll just compress our pistons a little bit so that we can get those brake pads out of there. So for this part, we want to make sure that our wheels are chocked in the front and that we remove that brake pedal depressor we may have installed earlier. Otherwise, this is not going to work. So I'm just using some basic tools here like channel locks. If you got some AMG calipers, you can be more careful. Maybe you can put something here, or you can try and just do this from this side. Be a little more delicate. That really just takes that. And then your brake pads will just come squeaking out there. And now we can remove the bolts on the back to get our caliper off. So from the back, we can see here, remove the top bolt, and then we just need to get this bottom one the rest of the way off. We'll just take that off with our 18. Well, we got both our rear bolts and our calipers out. We can come back to the front. We can just slip this guy off. And we can use something like this, which is very useful. This is just a thing I made out of coat hanger. You can slip through like a hole right there. and it allows you to just hang it on to anything you like. That way it doesn't put any stress on your brake line. So we always want to try and hang those if we can, and that way we don't do more damage than fixing while we're in here. The next thing we're going to want to do is take these two bolts off, the one here and one there, so that we can get our lower control arm to start going down, so that we can hop this guy over and get it out. So this one is going to be bigger, probably closer to a 21. Let me get that size for you. So at this point, you can see here, this is 21, 21, so I got both these off. So you want to keep these nuts separate because they are different than one another. And this one actually has a washer on it right here. So we're going to put those, we're going to try and keep them a little bit separated. I'll try and keep those different. So to get those off, you'll have to come to the other side. You can see this one, where is it? This one requires another 21, and then the one farther in, this one right here, will require an E18, which is a pretty big external Torx socket, which is kind of a special tool that you're probably not going to have in your average toolbox unless you work on German cars often. So once you get those off, you'll just need to drive those bolts out. This one comes off easy because the strut's not connected to anything at the top, so keep those together. This one will be a little more difficult. It's actually pretty simple, so you just want to make sure you keep those washers and make sure one on each side goes back when you go back together. So now what you'll need to do is you'll need to flex this arm down and simultaneously lift up on the strut to get it up and over here. But before we do that, we want to get this electrical connector that goes back over there disconnected. There. So if we stare at the right rear wheel and we come under the vehicle, we'll see that wire, which is right there, go up under this arm, and then over here, and that's it right there in the center of the camera. So what we will need to do is reach our arm up in there. We'll need to grab this and pull it through, just like that. Gently disconnect it. As you can see right there, it's a, see if I can get a better shot for you. It's a pretty simple connector. I just need to unplug it. I don't know if I can with one hand. And so once that is disconnected, then the shock is safe to remove from the vehicle. But you want to make sure that you take it off its routings, just like this guy right here, carefully. I'm gonna pop these guys off. On the shock, there's one, and there's a second one right there. Alright, you just need to reach in there and push it off if you can. So now, with this electrical connector disconnected, you can see that second one didn't want to come off very well, but it is not broken, so if you can, you don't want to break these, but we can just swap this over to the new one once we're done. But we need to get your caliper out of the way. Sometimes you gotta move it back and forth, depending on where you are. So I'm trying to push this guy down again. And this guy up and over like that. And we'll just snake this out of here. And there we are. So now we can compare our old and new struts. Here we can see we've got this guy on here, and then we can unravel this because we've also got our valve there. So what I'm using is an Arnot strut from Arnot suspension products, and this is a new unit, as they call it, not a remanufactured unit. So from what I believe, this valve is not actually a pulsation dampener like I believe that is. This is actually just an electrical component in here that defeats the warning light. So the ride's not supposed to be much different from what I understand, but it is cheaper, and it's new materials, not just a rebuilt one of these. A remanufactured would probably just be this strut that I send back, re-coated and sent back out. So we're gonna install this guy here, put this here, so you can see your Arnot products comes with 3 new nuts, and then you got your valve nut here. So we can see the top of this guy is sealed, and what we want to do is we want to take this guy off right here. I want to spin this off and put this one in there. I mean, you can wait to do this part of it for when it's already in the vehicle. Maybe a bit more challenging, but from what I can see, you don't have tons to worry about. I like to put it in right now and tighten it down while I can know that it's properly in there. I'm going to use my 10mm wrench and just carefully tighten that by hand. And it really doesn't take a lot. You don't want to like overdo that. So we're going to do the exact opposite of what we just did, and we're going to take this and position it the same way that it was when we took it out. Well, this is where the trickiest part of the job usually comes into play. So the hard part here is getting these 3 guys to line up in there, and then also get this over. So what we're gonna do is carefully get this under, back up into the channel, and you don't want to hit this like I just did. You want to try and get this up in there. Once you got it all the way up there, kind of try and turn it, wiggle it. Usually you want a second person in the car trying to put one of those brand new nuts, a couple threads on to hold it into place while you're doing this. So hopefully you got somebody that can at least momentarily help you. Otherwise it can be more of a pain. So I don't know if you could hear that, but the screws are lined up in the top. I got a trick up my sleeve there. Alright, so now that we're back up here, we're just get all of our 13s back up there, find them and tighten them down. So I got one on there. These are the old ones, so I got them all on there already. Forgot I put them on there. Usually I put one, but it's good to put more than one. Tiny bit of silicone spray on each of my fingers, and I just lube the end of this thing up. Right, so all we're gonna do is we're gonna pull this guy straight out, and so that little piece, it's gonna stay right in there. And we need to take this guy and stick it in the hole carefully so we don't mess up the O-ring. And you want to see this guy go pretty much all the way to this paint mark. Let's see. Well, I guess it doesn't really go to the paint mark, but it goes in a considerable amount. And once it's pushed in, you'll feel it kind of drop in. You want to give it a few tugs back and forth to make sure it's like in there. I mean, you'll feel a little bit of play because that's the shark bite fitting, but it's in there. As long as it doesn't pull out, you're good. And then you just put your cover back on and, of course, clean up any part you got a little bit dirty with like alcohol wipe. And that should be pretty much it. All right, so once you push the arm down enough so you can get your strut in there, you are going to need to basically move this arm back up and put your bolts back in. And you're going to want to connect this electrical connector back where you found it. All right, so I've got these tightened down. You want to tighten those down to manufacturer torque spec. So now I'm going to connect my electrical connector. I'll move my brake caliper back over here. And we're going to plug this guy in there. And so we'll get that on there. I'll put the brake caliper on. So I'm gonna recommend covering this guy, hitting this with a little bit of silicone spray so it goes on there nice and easy. And then we'll just go under here, try and plug it back in. We're gonna route this guy just like that. You can hit that with silicone spray too. Should probably make that easier as well. And look at how easy that went in. So then we just need to throw this over the control arm. Got that guy plugged up back in there. I've got it routed correctly. Right there and right there. All right. So now we just need to make sure our top bolts are completely tight and put the caliper back on. Of course, now we're just gonna do the exact opposite. Put our caliper on there. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our electrical connector for our wear sensor. We're gonna get our bolt, our little torque, more than enough. Put our brake pads, slip those back in there. And the other one. Spring and this guy. And that should be it for down here. Now I just need to put the wheel back on. Oh. Alright, so I've got the vehicle off the jack stands. You can see it's still pretty high. What I recommend doing is not letting the strut slam all the way out so that the fender line comes all the way down to the tire. You want to try and give the vehicle a chance to air up before you completely let it go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the car on right now. Give it that chance to air up on its own. Just a good practice that I always did when I was at the dealer. Just want to slowly lower it so that the car can catch up. See it start going up once the level sensor detects that it's too low. You'll see it right there. Comparison to the other side here. I can hear the compressor going now. Now once you've heard the compressor and the central reservoir go up, you should be able to drop it the rest of the way down. This guy will balance itself out here. There it goes. And there we are. So I can put about 2 or 3 fingers straight in there. Let's check the other side. Same thing, so you know that they're equal. Verifying in here that there's no warning lights. Strut's working as designed. It's just airing up, and now we can go for a drive and make everything's good. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Thanks for watching, everybody.